This, ladies and gentlemen, is going to be the perfect Rengar matchup guide. Not knowing what to do in certain matchups is not going to be a problem for you anymore. In this video I will tell you everything you need to know on how to jungle cap every single one of your opponents. Yo, what is up guys, my name is Puzipu. I'm a challenger Rengar one trick on the EOS and the Korean server, and I'm one of the best players to exist. I'm a Rengar one trick for over 5 years now, and I've played every single jungle matchup millions of times. Therefore, I know all the tricks and tips to abuse in every matchup to win jungle every game. And in this video, I'm going to share those tips and tricks with you guys. I'm going to categorize each jungler into one of the following categories: unplayable matchups, skill matchups, tank matchups, and easy matchups. To not repeat myself, I tell you each category and what these matchups have in common when it comes to playstyles and what you need to pay attention to. Let's start with the unplayable matchups. Like the name already says, in those matchups you have barely any windows to force a play around the enemy jungler. You want to path away from the champion and not look for fights unless they are hard outnumbered. Those champions in this category are much stronger than you at any stage of the game, and there's no counterplay that will allow you to win this matchup. They're just simply stronger than you. Let's start with one of my most hated champions of all time, Bel'veth. Never fight her, don't even look into her direction unless her E is on cooldown. Once she uses her E, you can engage afterwards and maybe one-shot her or let your teammates follow up on her. You have to be careful, since Bel'veth has a lot of dashes, ward your jungle entry so you don't get invaded. And lastly, make sure to deny her every herald so she don't get a herald form and can't spawn her minions. Next up is Wukong. Make sure to never fight him alone and hit your E on him so you know when he uses his W and you reveal the real Wukong. Later on, make sure to get an Edge of Night, since he will always deny you your first jump with his knock up. This will allow you to jump into the team fight and not get cancelled. The next unplayable matchup is Udyr. You have to make sure to not fall behind versus Udyr, otherwise he will just run you down in your jungle and there's no counterplay to it. Always play away from him and make sure to counter gank him if your laners are stronger. The only time window you have to kill Udyr is if you finish your first item before he does. You can win the fight with 4 stacks, but after his first item it's game over. Next up we have Warwick. Never fight when Warwick is around. Try to get the lead of Warwick by clearing faster and taking away his camps, since he has a slow clear. Only engage on him when his W is on cooldown and you have your teammates around. Then you can lock him up and let your teammates finish off the job. Also make sure to always run around with 4 stacks or he can just ult you and kill you. Next is Master Yi. Make sure to not jump on him when he sees you. He can block your damage with his Q or his W. Also never fall behind of Yi, otherwise he will just run you down and there's nothing you can do about it. The only time window you have to kill him is before level 6 with your teammates. Then you can actually win fights and you're actually stronger in skirmishes. After that he just outscales you and there's nothing you can do about it. If you are really ahead, make sure to one-shot him by jumping over walls. This way he can't react to your jump and you can maybe one-shot him. And that is the only way you can kill him. And lastly, when it comes to unplayable matchups, we have Olaf. Make sure to never be in Olaf's Q range, otherwise he can just chase you down with his Qs and kill you. Once he's 6, you have to kite his ultimate, otherwise he's way too strong. So just W, ult away, use Yomos, use everything you can to get away, and once his ultimate is down, you can turn on him. Do not get baited by his shield, he's most likely gonna use it when he's low HP. The lower his HP is, the stronger he gets, so make sure once he's low HP, burst him as fast as possible or he will turn the fight. Okay, those were all the unplayable matchups. Let's get over to the skill matchups. Skill matchups are actually winnable matchups that you win if you play better than the enemy jungler and if you abuse certain tricks and tips. Let's start off with Diana. The only time you're stronger than Diana is if you have 4 stacks and she doesn't have a Conqueror stacked. You are always stronger in skirmishes than Diana, since her abilities have high cooldown in early game, so make sure to fight a lot early game, especially since she is always ahead later on in the game because of her insane fast jungle clear. So make sure to abuse her early game. Don't fall behind, and she's a free pick later on in the game if she goes AP, but if she goes the tank Yaksho build with Demonic, you can never fight her, so you have to have your teammate around. But she can't 1v9 as much with this build. Next up is Graves. Graves is probably one of the most hated matchups for every Rengar player, but is definitely playable and you can outplay him if you play it properly. He beats you early game unless you have 4 stacks and he doesn't have his passive stacked, so make sure to look out for his passive. Early game you have to path away from him unless you can one-shot him, otherwise he will just stack his passive and sustain with fleet footwork. so make sure to path away and abuse his laners. You outscale Graves if you are ahead, so make sure to never fall behind. At level 6 you have a window to ult him with 4 stacks and one-shot him in his own jungle. And later on, if you are really fat, you can also just perma one-shot him since he doesn't have a lot of counterplay. Next up is Elise. Against Elise, you always have to make sure you counter gank her and predict her pathing. Look which lane she wants to dive or gank and be there. Don't let her abuse your teammates. You are stronger than her in skirmishes, so abuse that. Always run around with 4 stacks, otherwise she can just E you and one-shot you. And lastly, don't get baited by her repel spell, she can just dodge your combo, so make sure to save your ferocity spell after you use your combo and then react to what she's doing. The next skill matchup is Lee Sin. You only win against Lee Sin if you have 4 stacks, and he's usually stronger in skirmishes, so make sure to only fight if your laners are stronger. Also punishes poor jungling clear by getting ahead and outpathing him. If you're fighting him, make sure to never stand still and try to dodge his Q. If he misses his Q, it's your win. Be careful once he gets 6, at level 6 he can one-shot you and there's nothing much you can do about it. So save your ferocity and save your W. Lillia is the next skill matchup. Punish her early game and lock her down with the E so she can't kite you and let your team follow up. Do not fight her unless you have bushes around, or you can lock her down and finish her off. Otherwise she will just kite you. Make sure to never waste your ferocity spell against Lillia, since you can cleanse her sleep and just turn on her after you cleanse the sleep. She will probably not expect it. Moving on to Kindred. You win early game versus her if you get 4 stacks. You don't win without your stacks, so make sure to play around that. Don't let her cheese invade you, since she can jump over the wall and invade your red buff or blue buff at level 2, so get a ward in your jungle. Do not jump onto her if you don't have flash or there are no bushes around, unless you can one-shot her. She can just jump away from you and then keep on kiting you, there's nothing you can do about that. After 6, always keep her ultimate cooldown in mind. Always jump on her if it's down, and if it's up you have to make sure she's alone. You can disable Kindred by perma hunting her in her own jungle later on and making her waste her ultimate for you. And if she uses ultimate and you're in it, save your ferocity spell after your combo to finish her off once the ultimate is over. You win 90% of the times. And lastly, make sure to never engage on a champion or look for a pick if the Kindred is around. She will just disable you and there's no counterplay to it. If that's the case, make sure to let your team engage first and you clean off the fight after her ultimate is over. Next we have Nocturne. Play with 4 stacks, that's the only way you can kill him and you can win. If you're fighting Nocturne in a 1v1, make sure to cleanse his fear and stall his attack speed that he gets from his E. Run away and then turn on him once it's done. After 6 you can always engage on him and you will always win if you have 4 stacks. But if he engages on you first with his ultimate, there's not a lot you can do and he will most likely kill you. Also, what most people don't know, you can cleanse Nocturne's ultimate and generate vision again if you use your W after he ults. This helps you to still be able to see the fight even though his ultimate is still on. Next up we have the clown Shaco. Shaco can invade you level 3 with Hail of Blades and Ignite, so make sure to ward your jungle camps and not give him any entry to invade you. Whenever you can and you know Shaco's pathing, you have to counter gank him. After he uses his Q, he has no escape spell and you can one-shot 10 out of 10 times. Do not ever jump onto his boxes, otherwise you will just get feared and he either turns onto you and kills you or jumps away. Therefore you always have to have sweepers around to make sure to reveal his boxes. You can always kill Shaco later in the game by jumping onto him and hitting your E. You can identify the real Shaco by seeing that he has the true sight eyes above his head and the clone doesn't. Rek'Sai. You only win early game with 4 stacks, so do not fight without it. Rek'Sai is a cheese jungler, so make sure to counter gank her early ganks since you are way stronger. You have to wait for her to unburrow and then you can jump her, otherwise she will just cancel your jump. If you are sitting in a bush and Rek'Sai is around, make sure to stand still so she doesn't reveal your footsteps. Make sure to always buy Edge of Night against Rek'Sai, otherwise she will disable your jump and you cannot play against her. And later on always keep 4 stacks, since she can just prowler onto you and one-shot you. With 4 stacks you can just cleanse her damage and disable her from going onto you. The next skill matchup is Xin'Zhao. Xin'Zhao is stronger than you in the early game and beats you later on at most of the stages. The only time you can kill Xin'Zhao is if you are level 6 and you have 4 stacks. Then you can one-shot him after your Dirk or after your first item and there's nothing much you can do about it since he has no escape spell. Do not engage onto Xin'Zhao or his teammates when his ultimate is up. He can just cancel your jump and kill you afterwards. So wait out his ultimate and jump on him once he has used it. The last skill matchup is Viego. You beat Viego early game, so try to fight a lot and counter gank him. You need to make sure to not give him resets though. If he gets a reset, he will most likely turn the fight. So always be careful about dying next to a Viego. If he gets a reset, don't jump onto him. He's untargetable during that time and can block all your damage. Once you're level 6, you can use your ultimate and hunt him down with 4 stacks. He's an easy pick for you and very squishy. Always make sure to pay attention to Viego's resets. If he picks up your ADC or another squishy member from your team, you can just simply one-shot him since he also gets the champion stats. Okay, that's it with the skill matchups. If you struggled against those matchups, you should now know when you're stronger and what to do to win jungle. Now let's move over to the tank matchups, my most hated matchups. The only time you win against tank matchups is before they finish their first item. Afterwards, you're just outscaled and they have better stats than you. So make sure to never target them and play away from them. Target the squishies instead of the tanks. The only way to beat those matchups later on in the game is if you use my secret bruiser build. If they have a second tank or 2 bruisers, so if the enemy team comp allows you to, you can go the following build. You get your Divine Sunderer first item into Black Cleaver, followed by Death Stance and Morphmal Mortius. This build allows you to 1v1 tanks since Divine Sunderer deals HP percentage damage and heals you of the enemy's max HP. And the other items like Black Cleaver and Death Stance help you to sustain and shred the enemy team's armor. So this build actually allows you to be useful even though the enemy team has a very tanky team comp. Starting off with Amumu. Make sure to always fight him before level 6 since he's very weak before he gets his ultimate. After level 6 he's actually already stronger than you and one-shots you and can perma lock you down with his CC. So make sure to always run around with 4 stacks and cleanse not his Q but his ultimate. If you cleanse his Q, he will instantly ult after and still lock you down. Next up is Jarvan. If he hits his spells onto you, he wins early game. If he doesn't, you win. So make sure to either dodge his EQ combo or just not fight him at all. J4 is very easy counter gankable, so make sure to analyze his pathing and always counter gank him. Once he uses his EQ combo, you can jump on him and he can't really escape, since it's the only tool he has to either gap close or to escape. So pay attention to his cooldowns and abuse him. Be careful where you are. After he gets level 6, he can just ult you and lock you down. Since you don't have any escape spells, you are just dead. Also keep in mind that Jarvan can still EQ dash even though you snared him. So never use a snare onto him since it doesn't do anything. The next matchup we're going to talk about is Maokai. After the buffs, Maokai is insanely broken and I personally permaban him since he's a very hard matchup, but you can still play it. Maokai has insane gank potential, so make sure to counter gank him. If you counter gank him, you deny him his very strong ganks and you set him back a lot. Since he always goes Demonic Embrace first item, you actually have a chance at killing him before he finishes his second item if you are ahead. So look for him in his jungle and kill him. Later on, do not face check bushes since his saplings are everywhere. They will get you to 50% HP without you joining the fight. So pay attention to his saplings and you can block his ultimate for your teammates and then cleanse it. The ultimate can only CC one person and the other ones behind the person will not get CC'd. So cleanse it and your team is good to go. Okay, next up is Rammus.
Okay.
Rammus beats you at any stage of the game. He's one of the few tanks that are even stronger than you in the early game. So make sure to play away from him. The only time you can deal damage to Rammus is if his W is on cooldown. So also pay attention to his W cooldown. Don't ever let him engage onto you and always keep your ferocity to cleanse his taunt. He can legit one-shot you at one item. The next tank is Sejanu. Sejanu is only fightable if you have 4 stacks. Make sure to not play close to Sejanu if she's around you and you don't have your stacks. Her numbers are so insane that she can literally one-shot you at level 6. So there's not much you can do about that. Make sure to hold your ferocity. Also remember that she can cancel your jump with her Q. So don't jump when Sejanu is around. Next up, Nunu. You can never kill Nunu. He will always get away from you since he can slow you, use a snowball to get more movement speed and lock you down with his passive. So don't even try to fight him. The only way you win the Nunu matchup is if you counter gank him. You have to abuse his cheesy ganks. He will try to abuse your teammates, so always be there if you can. And you have to respect his snowball. If he snowballs to you, you have to snare him so he can't get close to you. Always use your snare to deny him a snowball. If the snowball hits you, you're most likely gonna die. So make sure to pay attention to that. Next, Poppy. Only use your jump when Poppy is around if her W is on cooldown. Otherwise you're just gonna get cancelled and stun locked. There's nothing much you can do if Poppy is around, so you have to make sure to buy an Edge of Night so she cannot cancel your jump anymore. Poppy is just one of the boring matchups where you have to let your team do most of the work and you just play when you're able to play. Next up, Skarner. Always make sure to counter gank Skarner since he's very weak in skirmishes and doesn't have a lot of tools to play them. Don't let him ult your teammates by snaring the Skarner if he gets too close to your teammates. Also keep your ferocity if he's running towards you to always cleanse his ultimate. He can never catch you if you have it ready. You can bait his ultimate later by jumping onto him while using your combo and then saving your ferocity spell when he ults you so you can cleanse it. Then he doesn't have his ultimate anymore and he's most likely gonna be useless for the rest of the fight. Next up is Vi. Fight Vi early game and dodge her Q. Once she uses her Q, she has no escape spell and there's nothing much she can do afterwards. You only win against Vi before she has 2 items, so make sure to punish her as much as possible before she gets those. After she gets her 2 items, be careful about your positioning later on in the game. She can just engage onto you with her ultimate and kill you. There's no counterplay since you cannot cancel her ultimate. Moving on to Volibear. Volibear is also one of the tanks you actually do not beat in the early game, so make sure to path away from him. Play with your snare to deny him from getting onto your teammates, or save your W if he tries to engage onto you. If Volibear marked you with his W, make sure to not stay close to him since he can just heal off you. Next up is Zac. You have to counter gank Zac and punish his weak early game. After Zac uses his E, he's a very easy target to kill. You have to make sure to deny him his passive blobs by walking on top of them. With those passive blobs, he can heal back up and actually still turn the fight. Always pay attention to his passive. He has it up, only make sure to fight if he's alone. And once he procs his passive, keep in mind that you can smite his passive blob to finish him off faster. Also, if your teammates are around and he tries to jump onto your teammates, you can deny him his jump by snaring him. Then his jump goes back on cooldown and he has no way to engage anymore. Zac also has a very bad jungle clear, so try to get a big lead by outpathing him and then later on you can punish him very easily. Next up is Shyvanna. Abuse her not having any escape spells, so look to kill her whenever you get the chance to. You actually do not win in a straight up 1v1, but you can make sure to perma snare her down for your teammates and they can kill her. You have to be careful about her level 6 power spike. Once she hits 6, she's a completely different champion and can literally just one-shot you. So be careful and pay patiently. Okay, those were all the tank matchups. Now we are done with them and let's move over to the last matchup list, the easy matchups. The easy matchups are heavily Rengar favored and you have to punish them as fast as possible and as early as possible. You do that by looking to invade them and adapt your pathing to always fight around them and not give them any room to breathe. This is very important. Do not let them scale. You win those matchups, you have to punish them. Starting off with Ekko. Always run around with 4 stacks to not get caught by his W. If he hits his W, he will most likely one-shot you since you can't cleanse his damage. Make sure to always use a snare combo onto the Ekko so he cannot ultimate. If you snare him down, you can simply one-shot him and there's not much he can do about it. Playing against Ekko, you have to abuse mind games. You can bait his ultimate by walking close range and making him use his ultimate before you even jump. Or you can jump over a wall to not give him any reaction time and just one-shot him like that. And lastly, always pay attention to where his ultimate is. If he hits his ultimate onto you, you're one-shot. There's no counterplay, but you can easily dodge it if you just pay attention to it. Next up is Evelynn. Once you hit level 6, you always want to be around the Evelynn. Do not let her play the game and hunt her in her own jungle. Make sure to not use your full combo when jumping on Evelynn, since she can just cancel your damage with her ultimate. And once her ultimate is down, she can't really play the game for the next 90 seconds. Or you can just chase her after she ultis and then kill her. Against Evelynn, you can also abuse mind games. If you walk close range, she might ulti because of nervousness and then you can just finish her off after she ultis. Or you can jump over a wall and not give her any reaction time. And if you hit the late game against an Evelynn, make sure to spam use your ultimate. The only way Evelynn can play the late game is by overextending on your side of the map and trying to cheese kill someone. If you ulti and reveal her, she cannot do that, so you can just either kill her or deny her from one-shotting your team. Next up is Fiddlesticks. If he tries to gank before 6, make sure to always counter him. he is not that strong in skirmishes unless minions are around from which he can also heal up. If that's not the case, you just win. Once Fiddlesticks hits 6, you have to make sure to not allow him to play the game. Always locate his positioning to not let him get good ultimates off. So before a teamfight is happening, make sure to get vision around the Fiddlesticks. You can ulti and get vision onto him, or you can use wards. Always keep 4 stacks if you have no vision around the Fiddlesticks, since if he hits his ultimate onto you, he will just chain CC into one-shot you. Next up is Gragas. Make sure to always counter gank the Gragas. He has insanely high cooldowns in the early game. Abuse this fact by killing him after he uses his abilities. If he dashes onto your teammates, jump on him and kill him. There's nothing he can do after he uses them. And you have to make sure to always buy Edge of Night against Gragas, or he will just cancel your jump and will one-shot you later. So Edge of Night allows you to play the game against him. Next easy matchup is Hecarim. Against Hecarim, you have to save your damage for when his W is out, so he doesn't have the resistances. And after that you can just kill him. You have to make sure to always kill the Hecarim first. Hecarim is very weak if he doesn't have his Q stacked, but once his Q is stacked he gets way stronger. So make sure to abuse this fact by killing him first and don't allow him to stack his Q. Always play with your snare against the Hecarim. If he runs at you, just snare him and there's nothing much you can do. After Hecarim gets 6, make sure to always run around with 4 stacks. He can just ulti at you and one-shot you. To not allow him to do so, you just have to run around with your stacks and don't give him any option to get onto you. The next matchup is Ivern. You just have to make sure to counter gank the Ivern as much as possible and you abuse his bushes against him. So if he places a bush, make sure to abuse it and jump with it. If you play against Ivern, it is very good to get Serpent's Fang. This allows you to still one-shot people even though he has a shield. What you have to pay attention to is not to get caught by Daisy. If Daisy gets onto you, it's very easy for Ivern to lock you down and let his teammates kill you. So make sure to stay away from Daisy, and other than that you can just kill him all the time. The next matchup is Karthus. Against Karthus you have to try to not fall behind as much as possible. Since Karthus has one of the fastest jungle clears in the game, he will always be ahead of you. Just try to be as close to him as possible. Abuse his poor ganks by counter ganking him and killing him. Once you hit level 6 you have to make sure to always hunt him in his own jungle. Karthus will AFK farm the game and you can always find him in his jungle and one-shot him. There's nothing you can do about it. Against Karthus players you have to analyze how they use their Q. They usually have a pattern on how to use them, so analyze the pattern and then you can dodge them. Don't use your ultimate to kill Karthus in teamfights. If the enemy team has another hard carry, kill the other hard carry. If Karthus dies first, he will still be able to deal a lot of damage and get his ultimate off. But when Karthus is alive, there's a higher chance that he can't get his ultimate off. The next matchup is Kayn. Always punish the Kayn before he gets his form. He's one of the weakest champions before he has his form, so you have to make sure to set him behind. Never jump onto a Kayn if he's in the wall. He will just glitch out on the other side of the wall and you cannot follow up. Unless you can one-shot him before he does so. If he is Red Kayn, make sure to never fight him alone, unless you are very ahead. He is always stronger than you in his red form. If you play against the Red Kayn and he is low HP, make sure to snare him and then burst him as fast as possible. Since if he is snared, he can't ulti you and can't heal back up to full. Against Blue Kayn, hunt him down and kill him all the time. He barely has any counterplay against it. At 3 items you just one-shot him. But you have to make sure that he never gets onto you. If he gets onto you first and you have no stacks, he will most likely kill you. So make sure to always run around with 4 stacks to not give him any opportunity to one-shot you. The next matchup is Kha'Zix. Keep in mind that Kha'Zix E cooldown is very high and it's the only spell he has to either engage or disengage. Make sure to fight the Kha'Zix whenever you can. You're always stronger than him. After you hit level 6, you can always jump onto him and always one-shot him. If you hit your E on him, he can never go invisible, so you can perma one-shot him. The only counterplay he has is going stealth, so you have to make sure to hit your E. You have to make sure to never face check the Kha'Zix or never let him jump onto you. This is the only time the Kha'Zix wins. If he gets the first jump onto you or engages onto you first, you will lose. So make sure to always be the one jumping onto him. And also, make him not be able to play the game by ulting in teamfights. You can just perma reveal his stealth and your teammates can finish him off. The next matchup is Nidalee. You can't really kill the Nidalee 1v1 in early game since she will always jump away and she will just waste your time. So make sure to counter gank her as much as possible and deny her good ganks. After you have your first item, make sure to punish her and jump onto her whenever you can. Very important, dodge her spears at all costs. If she hits a spear onto you, she can one-shot you. But if she doesn't hit the spear, she has no damage. Remember that. Dodging the spear is the key to winning Nidalee matchup. And always make sure to use a sweeper when the Nidalee was around, so you can just reveal her traps and not run into them. The next matchup is Talon. Against Talon you can always win the 1v1 if you hit your E onto him. That way he will not go stealth since you reveal him and you can just one-shot him. Make sure to always hold your W for Talon's combo. Once Talon uses his combo you can W and deny all his damage. If a teamfight starts, make sure to ultimate and then sit in your ultimate for a while. Talon cannot go invisible that way and you deny him the whole fight. The next matchup is Taliyah. You beat Taliyah at any stage of the game, but she's very annoying to deal with. You have to be careful on how she uses her E's. If you jump over her E, you will get stunned and most likely will get one-shot by her. To deny her doing so, you can just get an Edge of Night and kill her at all times. But in the early game you just have to make sure to never jump onto her when the E is laying on the ground. Be careful, she will build Zhonya's at one point, so make sure to kill her before she has Zhonya's and then afterwards just respect her Zhonya's. And the very last matchup I'm going to talk about is the Zed matchup. Zed is very easy to deal with in the early game. The only time it gets tricky is once he hits his 2-item spike. After that he can always deny your damage output by ulting your combo. So you have to make sure to always jump on him and never use your combo. Once he uses his ultimate you can just use your abilities and W his damage as well. Against Zac you can use the same mind trick by walking close range into him and making him use his ultimate. After he uses his ultimate you just one-shot him. And the same way goes if you jump over walls. Jump over a wall to not give him any reaction time and one-shot him. Remember that Zed's biggest weakness is his high W cooldown. Once he uses his W, he's an easy target to kill and has no escape spell, so abuse this fact. And you will never lose a Zed matchup again. Okay guys, this was it with the matchup list. This is all the information you should need to win almost all the jungle matchups, or at least be useful and not get abused by the enemy jungler. I hope you liked it guys. If you did, I would appreciate the like on the video and the comment. If you have further questions, make sure to ask them in the comment section. And remember, I stream daily on Twitch, so make sure to also follow me there and check out my other socials. Thank you for watching guys, I love you all. Peace!